everyone, Six String Supplies. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Every video we've done so far has been a demonstration of how to wire a particular guitar circuit or any given soldering technique, or how to do this, how to do that. Today I'm actually been working on a physical guitar, and I'll just show you this here. I picked this up on eBay about a month ago. It's an Epiphone Les Paul. It came with the stock pickups, which were pretty decent, the hardware, which is standard Epiphone hardware. A couple of the pots were missing, which doesn't really matter. I don't know anything about it really. I'm not too fussed about the serial number or anything like that. I don't know what kind of burst this is, so if anyone does know, please just drop a comment below. Couple of little minor flaws, shall we say. There's a little chip in the finish there, which really bugs me. Apart from that, I mean, I've given it a wipe down, obviously, just before doing this video, but you should just be able to see in the light there, if it's not reflecting too badly, the little indent here, and you can see them just on the other side. They're actually on pretty much every, and again here, pretty much on every single control knob. The reason being, I'm assuming the previous owner really struggled to get the control knobs off, and he used a spoon or something else, blunt, it's a blunt object, to try and force the knobs off, and in doing that he's put some dents in the finish. When I rewired the thing and put some new control knobs on, it shouldn't be too obvious, but apart from that, it's a really nice guitar. So I'm pretty happy. That's about 105 quid, I think, collection, which is a bonus. And as it happens, I went into town this morning to buy some new strings, which I'll put on after I've rewired the thing. And I saw the exact same but left-handed version for 350. But this shop in question is famous for being a bit of a joke with his prices. But anyway, so what I'm actually going to do today, a lot of people buy these products that I'm about to show you off the website as a package, and I'm going to show you how to install them. Whilst I've done a video before on how to wire a Les Paul and how to wire a toggle switch, I haven't actually done one on how to install these products, so I'm just going to show you these very quickly. This is our Les Paul wiring harness. It's your standard CTS true vintage taper pots, a couple of paper and ore capacitors. This is short shaft for Epiphones or other Far Eastern imported models. Available in long shaft for Gibsons as well, or if you've got an unusually thick top. We've also got a pre-wired toggle switch. Now this is Switchcraft, quite simply the best in the business. This is using braided wire, so a la Gibson style, I like to call it. It's colour coded for easy installation. I'll show you when we get around to that. But I'm also going to use this video as an opportunity to introduce this range of pickups we've started to stock. House of Tone pickups, the UK pickup company in Chester, Northern England. Beautiful town if you've ever been. If you haven't been, make sure you go. But these are his name's Matt, and what I'm going to be putting in this guitar is his true PAF, however you call it. I call it a PAF. Now these pickups were actually reviewed by Guitar Magazine and given 10 out of 10. But supposedly they're right up there with all the others. I'm going to put a set in this Epiphone. We've started to stock House of Tone pickups, not just these PAFs, but the Telecaster and the Stratocaster types as well. They are top pickups, and I'm not just saying that because we stock them, but I'm generally trying to get this pickup brand more recognition. They deserve more recognition, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I'm going to put these in. They do look stunning. You've got your typical braided wire, nice cornered base plates as opposed to square, which I don't know, if you're into your PAFs, to be honest, it's all about details. So I'm going to be putting those in. Right then. Okay, so first things first, I remove the harness from the template that it comes on and put that into your guitar. Assemble it all up with the nuts and the washers. Because they're short shafts, you shouldn't really have to fanny around with nuts to adjust the height of the shaft that comes through at the top. If you're using long shaft pots, you probably would have to adjust them a little bit just to get a more equal shaft length protruding from the other side, especially on a carved top or a Gibson. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to ground the main ground from the bridge to the back of the volume pot. So that's this wire here. If you're rewiring your Epiphone or Gibson or Tokai, you will have this wiring already. It basically is the main ground that comes from the bridge, and you need to ground everything to that. If you're doing a parts cast or a DIY guitar kit build thing, you'd have to put that ground in yourself. So we're just going to go ahead and ground that down. Feel like a bit of a heart surgeon with these cloths. So I'm just using these cloths. They're actually from Halfords, microfiber cloths that you'd normally use to clean your car. Pack of 4 for about £3 or something. Can't go wrong. But I'm just using them to protect the finish. From splashes of solder, or if you accidentally burn the finish with your soldering iron, just to protect it a little bit there. Okay, so that's that done. The next step, we're going to move on to the toggle switch. Now your toggle switch, actually I'll show you, it comes in a package like this. It's braided guitar wire. There are 3 wires in total. Now obviously if you've seen enough of our videos, you'll know that we love to work with braided wire, but basically the outer braid of each wire there needs to get grounded to its respective ground point, which we'll go through in a minute. And the inner cloth wire, which is the hot or the signal wire, will go to the lugs of the pots or the jack. So it does actually come with some instructions here. It's colour coded to match it all up. So if we'll just take this apart, just to show you the colour codes. So we've got red, blue and yellow. There you go, with some heat shrink tubing, which we'll cut off anyway. But basically the red is what we're going to solder to the neck volume control. So the outer braid we're going to ground, and the inner cloth wire we're going to solder to the lug there. Blue, exactly the same, but this time to the bridge volume. And the yellow we're going to run through out to the jack socket there. So we're going to put this in the toggle switch cavity at the other end, and we're going to feed the wires through, and then we're going to solder them in place. So the switch itself, just to show you, we're going to put it in the control cavity like this, so all the wires are going to be pointing downwards towards the main control cavity here. But just to show you how it's set up really, you got, like I say, there's 3 separate braided wires here, one for the jack and one for each volume. And we've covered them in heat shrink rubber tubing simply because it's not so bad in an Epiphone or Gibson or other high-end models, for example, but if you've ever tried to get 5 different braided wires through that channel here, it can be a bit of a pickle. So the rubber tubing is there simply just to hold all the wires close together, so it's a lot easier to feed them all through. So I'm just going to pop that in, feed them through, solder them in place, and then we'll move on to the pickups. So here are my 3 toggle switch wires, fed them all the way through. It was actually pretty simple, to be honest. Like I say, in Epiphones and Gibsons, it's not an issue. But obviously when you're trying to get, bear in mind the pickups have got braided wire, getting 5 different braided wires down that channel can be a bit tricky at times. But anyway, swiftly moving on. So as you can see, I've got 3 braided wires here from the switch, and they are colour coded. So we've got yellow, red and blue, and as we've said, the yellow goes to the jack, so we're just going to, for now, feed that all the way through, keep it out of the way. And the other 2 are going to the volume control. So red is going to the neck and blue is going to the bridge. And if I can just find my pokey thing quickly, just get another one. So for the braided wire, the outer braid, we're going to ground that to the top of the pot casing around here, just on the edge. And the inner cloth wire, the signal wire, which is the black cloth wire, we pull that back to reveal the inner wire, and that's going to go to the middle lug of the volume control. It's basically the output lug, because obviously the signal from the output runs back up to the toggle switch, through the toggle switch and back out to the jack through the yellow wire. But that's enough science. Let's just get around to installing it. So I'm just going to get rid of that blue one for the moment. I'm just going to tape it out the way. Before you all start kicking off, this tape doesn't leave any sticky residue. It's an unbelievably thick finish, and it won't be on there long enough anyway to cause any potential damage. And it's my guitar, so use whatever tape you want. Doesn't really matter, you don't have to tape it down. I'm just trying to keep it out of the way for now, so I'm not getting confused between wires. Because once you cut the colour codes off, it's quite hard to tell which one's which without using a multimeter, of course. So we're just going to cut this to length. If I can find my wire cutters. And then we're actually going to need to just separate this braid a little bit. Because it makes it a lot easier to solder it down to the back pot casing if you cut a little bit of it away. So I'll just show you that quickly. Okay, so just to show you what I've done there, we've done it in a few other of our previous videos actually, but I've literally just taken my surgeon's tool and cut away at the braid, cut the braid back a little bit, a bit like as if a doctor's cutting up a patient's trousers. I've then twisted these braids together, which leaves you this little ledge there, if you can just about see it where my finger is, simply because that makes it a lot easier to braid that down to the pot itself. And the inner cloth wire, as I say, you push the cloth back to reveal the inner signal wire. And we're going to solder that to the middle lug of the volume control. So I'm just going to feed that through now. Now, because there's obviously solder already in there from the capacitor, you just have to heat it up and then feed the wire through. You might need to flow in a little bit more solder, excuse me. All good. And then that leaves us just to ground this little tab that we created earlier. So I'm just going to tin it first. So you just hold your soldering iron behind it, heat it up, and then flow in a tiny bit of solder. If I can get my angles. Let's just try that again. Okay. So I'm just going to tin this and then just lightly tin the pot casing, just a little bit more. Oh, doesn't work. Not ideal when you're left-handed, so I'm going to convert to right-handed. Let it cool. Sorted. And then we're going to do exactly the same for the blue wire, which goes to the bridge. So I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm just going to cut the braid off a little bit, push it back, solder the inner cloth wire to the output lug, which is the middle, and then ground the outer braid to the pot casing, just as we have there. Right, so I've just turned the guitar around a little bit because, well, I'm left-handed. So when I'm doing it on the bridge controls, I need a better angle for the soldering iron. And more importantly, of course, it gives you guys a better view. So I've done exactly the same there. I've just separated the braid and created that ledge, which if I can, there we go, and I've just tinned it. That's what we're going to ground to the back of the pot. Same again. This is the bridge control wire from the switch, so we're going to connect the inner cloth wire there to the middle lug, the output lug of the bridge volume. So exactly the same process, obviously because we've already got the solder in that lug, we're just going to heat it up and thread the wire through. Beautiful. Just going to get that out of the way. And then we're going to ground that silver tab, the outer braid there, to the back of the pot. So exactly the same. Just heat up the area, flow in some solder, and it should start to creep up the braid. Let it cool naturally. We're all good. And this final wire here is the jack to the yellow one from the switch that's colour coded yellow. That's going to go to the jack socket. So that's the final piece of this puzzle, and then we're going to move on to the pickups. Okay, so the final part of connecting the toggle switch is to connect this wire, which is the third braided wire running through the cavity here, to the jack socket. So the jack socket has, it's the same principle, it's got two lugs there, your ground and your hot signal lug. So the inner ring here, the one that's got Switchcraft engraved on it or embossed, that's the ground, so that's where we're going to solder the outer braid. I've already separated the braid there and created our mini ledge, which we're just going to poke through the hole. And the inner cloth wire, the black cloth wire, is going to go to the hot lug there. Just before we connect all that up though, you would have noticed, possibly in your own guitar or any other guitars you see, particularly Les Pauls, that this braided wire that runs through the middle of the cavity here, we're going to cover it with some heat shrink tubing, because if I could just get you to look here, if that braided, the outer braid, if that ground hits any lugs that it shouldn't do, it's going to short the circuit. This one here is obviously vulnerable because that's where the neck pickup's going to go to. We do not want the ground hitting that accidentally, so we're just going to feed some rubber tubing up there just to cover it like so, and we're going to use the heat gun to shrink it down. I'm actually going to put 2 layers on it, just in case it has a tendency to break through, or if it's scratching against something, it will cut through it in time. So I'm just going to put a double layer just to make sure. So for the jack itself, again, you don't need to do this, but I do out of habit, just a tiny bit of rubber tubing, which I've dropped. Just a tiny bit of rubber tubing, which we're going to use to cover the terminal of the jack. Just feed that up out the way for now. I'm going to push that cloth back down, reveal the inner cloth wire. Now the inner cloth wire is going to this lug here. So I'm just going to give that a quick tin. Just a little light coating. You can see that. There we go. I'm going to feed that cloth wire through, bend it round, actually make the mechanical, physical connection first, like so, and then solder that in place. All good. Push the cloth back down, and if you can find it, that little bit of tubing you put down earlier, just to cover the joint like so. Shrink that down. All good. Let it cool because it can get quite hot. And then that inner braid there, that ledge we created, we're going to solder into the ground lug like so. So ideally you want to tin it first, but my phone is about to die, so I'm just going to go ahead and ground that. Here we go. So that's the jack done. That's now ready to go back into your jack plate. You can screw that in as normal. Final step is to do the pickups. So both my pickups are in. I've threaded or fed both of the braided wires of each pickup through the channel on these 2 wires here. So I'm going to do one at a time. Obviously I'm going to start with the neck, which is this one. The bridge is taped out of the way for now, but it's exactly the same as we did for the toggle switch. So you need to ground the outer braid to the pot casing. Find my official pokey to the back of the pot, and the inner cloth wire, which is looking a bit bent, is going to go to the input lug, which is that one there, of each volume control. So on it's this one here on the bridge pickup, this one here for the neck pickup. So exactly the same principle. Separate the outer braid like as I've done here, create your ledge, push the inner cloth back, and we're going to solder that in place. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. If there isn't already solder in the eyelet of the solder lug, I'm just going to fill it with solder first. Oh, excuse me, I'm just going to tin these wires together as well. Then we're just going to feed the wire through and let it cool naturally. Push the cloth back down if you can. Just going to trim that off that's coming through, because that's quite sharp and could at some point, there you go, cut through the rubber tubing that we put on earlier to protect the braid. And then as we did with the toggle switch, we're just going to ground that to the pot casing itself. So I'm just going to tin it quickly. I'm just going to tin the pot. There we go, and then I'm just going to solder that in place. Let it cool. All good. Now we're going to do the exact same process for the bridge pickup. So last piece of the puzzle is the bridge pickup. It's exactly the same as we've just done for the neck. So I've cut away the braid a little bit here, created my ledge, which I'm going to tin in a second. The inner cloth wire, sorry, off camera, the inner cloth wire there, we are going to solder to this terminal here, which you can just about see. This bit of wood's sort of in the way, but the inner cloth wire is going to the input lug of the bridge volume, and the outer braid I'm going to put just on the side here somewhere. So we'll do exactly the same again. Just going to fill that eyelet with solder. move the capacitor out of the way. There we go. Just going to tin that ledge first because it's going to get awkward if I don't. See if you can see. There we go. It's a bit out of focus, but you should be able to work out what I'm doing. And I'm just going to tin the cloth wire as well. Okay, it's the same again. We're going to feed the pickup, the inner cloth wire, the hot wire, to the lug. Just push the braid out of the way for now. Let it cool naturally. And then that ledge there, you can see, I'm just going to try and put that wherever it is. Just on the side of the pot there. Like so. Sorted. So that's all the electronics in place. Pickups are in and grounded. Toggle switch is in and grounded. The pots and capacitors are all in. The main ground from the bridge is connected. The last thing to do is to put your plastics back on, restring it, or tighten the strings again if you just decided to slacken them off to put the new pickups in. You might not even be changing pickups. I'm being a bit assumptuous there. And then you're ready to go. So that's how you install our pre-wired Les Paul harness and the pre-wired toggle switch. It also shows you how to ground braided wire, although we do have a separate video on that should you need a bit more in-depth detail. How to wire a jack socket with braided wire, again there is another video on that. If you have any questions or comments at all, guys, please leave a comment or send us a PM or an email. I think you can still send PMs on YouTube, not entirely sure. There's a wiring diagram at the start of the video. Of course, one does come with the kit. A full range of wiring diagrams are available on our website, as well as a full range of harnesses. So thanks very much for watching. Any questions or comments, please just let us know.